Welcome, everyone. Have you ever felt a sudden, inexplicable chill in a room that was warm only moments before? Or perhaps you have felt a weight upon your chest, a sense of dread that seems to have no earthly cause, as if a shadow has passed over your heart. We often go through our days believing that the physical world is all there is. Yet the saints remind us that there is a veil, thin and fragile, separating us from unseen realities. But here is the profound question we must ask ourselves today. If there are dark forces that wish to disturb our peace, is there also a love so powerful, so tangible, that it can cross time and space to shield us? Today, we are opening the pages of history to one of the most chilling, yet ultimately comforting, stories from the life of Padre Pio. The night a terrifying beast entered a room, and the saint of Pietrelcina did the impossible to protect his spiritual child. Before we step into this mystery, let us pause for a moment of charity. We know that many of you carry heavy burdens, fears for your children, worries about the future, or battles that no one else sees. We invite you to create a sanctuary in the comments below. Write down your prayer, or the name of a loved one who needs protection. If the words are too hard to find, simply write Amen. And please look for the prayer of another. A stranger to you, but a brother or sister in spirit. And leave them a word of encouragement. Let no one in this community feel they are walking in the dark alone. To understand the magnitude of what happened to Cleonice Morcaldi, we must first understand the man who protected her. Padre Pio was not merely a friar who said Mass and heard confessions. He was a man who lived on the very frontier of the spiritual battlefield. For 50 years, he bore the stigmata, the wounds of Christ, but his suffering was not limited to the physical pain of his hands and feet. He engaged in a nightly warfare that most of us could not comprehend. He knew, with a certainty that terrified those who heard him speak of it, that the adversary, the enemy of human nature, was real. But more importantly, he knew that the power of God was infinitely greater. He taught us that a spiritual father does not abandon his children when the sun goes down. He once said, "I belong to everyone. Everyone can say, Padre Pio is mine." This possession was not a metaphor. It meant that his protection was always active, always watching, even when his physical body was locked within the cell of his friary. Our story centers on Cleonice Morcaldi. She was not just a casual observer of the saint, she was known as his spiritual daughter. In the town of San Giovanni Rotondo, a spiritual family had formed around the Padre, and Cleonice was a central figure in this circle. She had lost her own parents, and in her grief and solitude, she had turned to Padre Pio. He accepted her, not just as a penitent, but as a true daughter of his soul. He guided her, corrected her, and as we will see, he guarded her with a jealousy that was divine in nature. It was a time when Cleonice was living a life of deep prayer, trying to mirror the virtues of her spiritual father. But as any of the great mystics will tell you, when a soul decides to climb the mountain of holiness, the winds against it begin to blow harder. The enemy does not waste his time on those who are sleeping, he attacks those who are waking up. The incident occurred in the dead of night. Cleonice was in her home, a place that should have been a sanctuary of safety. The house was quiet. The town of San Giovanni Rotondo was asleep, the silence of the mountains pressing against the windows. She was alone. In the accounts she later shared with the other spiritual children, and which were documented by the friars, she described a sudden shift in the atmosphere. It wasn't just silence anymore, it was a heavy, oppressive stillness. The air grew thick. Then, terror struck. Out of the shadows, something manifested. Cleonice described it as a big animal. Un grosso animale. It was a brute, a beast of undefined but terrifying proportions. It did not look like a natural creature of the woods. Its presence radiated a pure, distilled malice. It was the kind of fear that freezes the blood, the kind that steals the breath from your lungs. This was not a nightmare. She was awake. This was a direct, demonic intimidation, intended to shatter her peace and drive her to despair. The beast lunged. It moved toward her with the intent to attack, to crush her spirit, and perhaps even harm her physically. In that split second, there was no time to run. There was no time to scream for the neighbors. She was trapped in the terrifying intimacy of violence. But in that exact moment of absolute helplessness, something miraculous happened. Cleonice gasped, her eyes widening not in fear but in shock. Between her and the beast, a figure appeared. It was him. Padre Pio. He was not a ghostly vapor or a transparent image. He appeared solid, real, and commanding. He was wearing his capuchin habit, the brown wool that was so familiar to all who knew him. But what happened next is the detail that changes this from a mere vision into something profoundly tangible. Padre Pio did not shout. He did not wave a hand. He acted with the instinct of a mother protecting a child or a shepherd shielding a lamb. He stepped forward, unclasped his large woolen cloak, the mantello that the friars wore to shield themselves from the cold winds of the Gargano Mountains, and with a sweeping motion he threw it over Cleonice. He covered her. It was a biblical gesture, reminiscent of the prophet Elijah throwing his mantle. But it was also deeply personal. He wrapped her in his own warmth, hiding her from the eyes of the beast. Under the shelter of that cloak, the terror vanished. The sensation of the wool, the smell of sanctity, and perhaps the faint scent of carbolic acid from his wounds surrounded her. The beast, confronted by the presence of the saint and the barrier of his protection, recoiled. It could not touch what the Father had covered. And just as quickly as the terror had begun, it ended. The beast fled, dissolving back into the darkness from which it came. The figure of Padre Pio, having ensured her safety, also faded from her sight, leaving her alone in the room. But was she alone? The fear was gone. A profound peace, a silence that was holy rather than oppressive, filled the house. Cleonice sat there, trembling now not from terror, but from the awe of what she had witnessed. She had been saved. But the human mind, even the mind of a faithful believer, is prone to doubt. As the adrenaline faded and the morning sun began to creep over the mountains, the questions must have started to rise. Did I imagine it? Was it a trick of the mind brought on by exhaustion? Was it just a vivid dream? We often rationalize the miraculous because it is too big for our logic to hold. We tell ourselves that we are not worthy of such direct intervention. Cleonice, humble as she was, surely wondered if her mind had played a trick on her to cope with a moment of panic. This brings us to the twist, the seal of authenticity that Padre Pio so often placed on his miracles. He rarely left his children guessing. He wanted them to know that the spiritual world was as real as the stones of the monastery. The very next morning, Cleonice went up to the friary of Our Lady of Grace. This was her routine, to attend the Mass of Padre Pio, and perhaps to confess or receive a word of guidance. Her heart must have been racing as she approached the church. She hadn't told anyone about the night before. How could she? It sounded impossible. As she arrived, she was met by a message, or perhaps a direct encounter with the friar who assisted Padre Pio. The details have been passed down through the testimonies of those early spiritual children. Padre Pio had a gift for her. This was unusual. The friars lived a life of poverty. They did not typically give material gifts. But the message came from the Padre himself. He wanted Cleonice to have something. He sent her his cloak. Not a symbol of a cloak, not a picture of a cloak. He sent her the actual physical woolen mantle that he had been wearing. And along with the object came a message, a casual remark that shattered any doubt she might have been holding on to. Padre Pio explained that he had received a new cloak, and therefore, he wanted her to have the old one. Imagine the moment Cleonice held that heavy, brown fabric in her hands. The texture would have been identical to the sensation she felt in the vision the night before. The weight of it on her arms was the confirmation of the weight she had felt on her shoulders when the beast lunged. By giving her the physical cloak the morning after he had spiritually thrown it over her to save her, Padre Pio was sending a clear, undeniable message. It was me. You were not dreaming. I was there. This event is a staggering revelation of the relationship between the natural and the supernatural. For Padre Pio, there was no distance. The walls of the friary could not contain his spirit. When a soul entrusted to him was in danger, he did not just send a thought, He sent his presence. He bilocated. Bilocation is one of the most mysterious charisms of the saints. It is the ability to be in two places at once, usually one physical and one spiritual, though to the observer, both appear physical. We see this in the life of Saint Anthony of Padua, Saint Alphonsus Liguori, and vividly in the life of Padre Pio. But why does God allow this? It is not a parlor trick. It is not for show. It is always for the sake of charity/love. It is God allowing a saint to extend his reach, to save, to comfort, or to warn. In the case of Cleonice, the gift of the cloak served a double purpose. It confirmed the miracle, yes, but it also left her with a relic of protection. In the Catholic tradition, the clothing of a saint, classified as a second-class relic, is treated with great reverence. We recall in the Acts of the Apostles that handkerchiefs and aprons that had touched the skin of St. Paul were taken to the sick, and their illnesses were cured and evil spirits left them. The material object becomes a carrier of spiritual grace. By giving Cleonice his cloak, Padre Pio was telling her, "You are covered. You are under my mantle. The enemy cannot reach you here." But let us go deeper. Why was Cleonice attacked in the first place? And why did Padre Pio have to intervene so drastically? We must understand that Padre Pio viewed life as a combat. He often referred to the devil as Bluebeard or the ogre. He didn't speak of evil as an abstract concept of bad choices. He spoke of an intelligence that hates humanity and seeks to separate us from God. He knew that souls who are close to God, like Cleonice, become targets. The enemy wants to discourage them, to make them feel abandoned. The beast appearing to Cleonice was a tactic of intimidation. It is a tactic used against many who strive for holiness. It is meant to say, you are alone in the dark, and you are weak. Padre Pio's intervention was the divine counter-argument. It said, she is not alone, and she is not weak, for she is protected by the strength of Christ which acts through his saints. This story of the cloak also draws our minds back to the Old Testament. We remember the prophet Elijah. When he was taken up to heaven in a whirlwind, his mantle fell from the sky. His successor, Elisha, picked it up. When Elisha struck the waters of the Jordan with that mantle, the waters parted. The cloak symbolized the power and the spirit of the master resting upon the disciple. By throwing his cloak over Cleonice and then physically gifting it to her, Padre Pio was also sharing his strength with her. He was strengthening her for her own spiritual journey. He was teaching her that the covering of a spiritual father is a real shelter. This was not the only time Padre Pio acted as a physical shield. There are other accounts that echo this protective love. We are reminded of the story during the Second World War. The skies over Italy were filled with bombers. San Giovanni Rotondo, however, remained untouched. There were reports from pilots, men of different faiths and nationalities, who claimed that when they approached the area of the friary to release their payloads, they saw a friar standing in the sky. Yes, standing in the air, with his arms outstretched, forbidding them to pass. The instruments would fail, or the planes would be turned back by an invisible force. Later, some of these pilots came to the friary and recognized Padre Pio as the man they had seen in the clouds. Just as he threw his cloak over Cleonice to protect her from a beast, he threw his spiritual presence over the town to protect it from bombs. The scale is different, but the principle is the same. The love of a saint is a shield. But let us return to the intimacy of the cloak. There is a lesson here for all of us about the nature of fear. Cleonice was terrified. Fear is the natural human reaction to the unknown and to danger. Padre Pio did not rebuke her for being afraid. He simply removed the cause of the fear. He covered her. How many of us today are living in a state of spiritual nakedness? We feel exposed to the elements of the world, the criticism of others, the temptations that surround us, the anxieties of modern life. We feel like we are standing in a storm without a coat. We try to brave it alone. We grit our teeth and try to be strong. The lesson of Cleonice is that we do not have to stand alone. We are invited to ask for the cloak. Padre Pio once said, I will stand at the gates of paradise, and I will not enter until the last of my spiritual children has entered. This is a staggering promise. It means his job is not done. It means he is still working, still watching, still throwing his cloak over those who call out to him. When we feel the beast of depression lunging at us, when we feel the beast of addiction tightening its grip, when we feel the beast of loneliness filling our room, that is the moment to remember Cleonice. That is the moment to close our eyes and ask Padre Pio or our Blessed Mother or our guardian angel to cover us. Cover me. It is a simple prayer. Hide me. The cloak represents the merits of the saint. When we ask for their intercession, we are essentially saying, Lord, look not at my weakness, but look at the love of this saint who loved you so perfectly. Let his love cover my lack of love. There is another layer to this story that we must not miss, the physical reality of the next day. The cloak was real wool. It had weight. It had texture. This reminds us that our faith is not just a head game. It is incarnational. We are body and soul. This is why we have sacramentals, rosaries, scapulars, holy water. These are not magic charms. They are the cloaks that we can touch. They are physical reminders of spiritual truths. When Cleonice touched that cloak in the years that followed, she must have been instantly transported back to that moment of rescue. It was a tangible anchor for her faith. If she ever doubted God's love in the future, she only had to look at the mantle. We too need these anchors. Maybe you wear a crucifix or a miraculous medal. Maybe you keep a prayer card in your wallet. These are your cloaks. They are small signs that you belong to a family that extends beyond this world. When you touch them, let them remind you that you are not fighting your battles alone. Let us also consider the aftermath for Cleonice. Being saved from the beast didn't mean her life became easy. She still had to suffer. She still had to grow. She still had to face the death of Padre Pio eventually. But she faced it all with a new knowledge. She was known, and she was loved. The trauma of the attack was replaced by the gratitude of the rescue. This is the transformation that faith offers us. It does not promise that there will be no beasts. It does not promise that there will be no dark nights. But it promises that in the dark, there is a presence that is stronger than the darkness. Padre Pio's protection was not passive. He fought for his children. We have testimonies of him sweating as if in a high fever, or appearing exhausted in the morning, having spent the night in prayer and spiritual combat for those who had written to him. He took the blows so that his children would not have to. He was a true father. In a letter to another spiritual child, he wrote, "Do not fear. Jesus is more powerful than all hell. At the name of Jesus, every knee must bow in heaven, on earth, and under the earth." The beast that attacked Cleonice had to flee not because Padre Pio was a magician, but because Padre Pio was filled with Jesus. The cloak was a vessel of Christ's light. Darkness cannot exist in the presence of light. It is a physical impossibility. So, what does this mean for us, right now, today? We may not see a physical beast with our eyes, but we all know the feeling of being hunted. We are hunted by regrets of the past. We are hunted by worries about our health. We are hunted by the fear that we are not good enough. Imagine, just for a moment, that you are Cleonice. You are in that dark room. You feel the threat approaching. But instead of panicking, you invite the protector in. You visualize the Saint of Pietrelcina, or perhaps the Virgin Mary, stepping between you and your fear. You see them throwing their mantle over you. Under that mantle, the noise of the world is muffled. Under that mantle, you are invisible to the enemy. Under that mantle, you can rest. This is the offer of the communion of saints. They are our family. They are our big brothers and sisters who have fought the dragon and won, and now they turn back to help us up the mountain. As we conclude this reflection, let us think about the cloaks we can offer to others. We may not have the power of bilocation, but we have the power of charity. When we see someone who is afraid, do we add to their fear, or do we cover them? When we see someone who is exposed by their sin or their shame, do we point and laugh, or do we throw a cloak of compassion over them? To be a spiritual child of Padre Pio is to imitate him. He protected, he covered, he comforted. The story of Cleonice Morcaldi and the Cloak is a treasure of the Church because it makes the invisible visible. It tells us that the bond of love is stronger than the laws of physics. It tells us that prayer is not just words vanish into the air. It is a force that can manifest a shield in a dark room. So tonight, if you find yourself staring into the dark, feeling the weight of the world, remember the rough wool of that cloak. Remember the saint who said, "I will be your father." Remember that you are not an orphan in this universe. You have a family. You have protectors. You are covered. Let us carry this hope with us. The beast may be big, but the saint is closer. The night may be dark, but the mantle is warm. Thank you for walking this journey with us today. If this story has touched your heart, if it has made you feel a little less alone, we encourage you to share it with someone who might be living in their own dark room right now. Be the one who brings them the cloak. Until next time, may you walk in the light. May you feel the warmth of His protection, and may you always know that you are watched over. Peace be with you.